So I don't think this woman needs much of an introduction, but as I said this morning when you weren't here, Rals, sometimes I say nice things about you even when you're not here. You have been such an important part of our network. I know that you hold many, many stories of our network in your heart. Rails has been with us since 1998, and it's a great pleasure to welcome her to Rocky.
Jesus, that's unusual, KP. When you've got the microphone, it's hard for anyone else to get near it. So I feel honoured that you've walked away so quickly.
See you later.
You must have had a long day. You're bored. It's really nice to be back in Rocky. I've been here a few times now, and I do love coming back to places I've been to, and sometimes seeing the same faces come along to see how we've progressed and the different moves we've made forward. And of course, the reason we do make moves forward is because of you people and the information that you give us to allow us to go with solid information to the powers that be to make change. My story is pretty much similar to most of yours, or to all of yours, but it's unique to me, like all of yours. 27 years ago next March, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It all started for me when I was 44 years old. I was fit. I was still running 5K a day. I was my racing weight. Shit, I'd like to be there again. And I was happy. I was working in a field, horticulture, that I loved. And I was really in a good place. You know, I'd grown through my athletic career, and I'd moved on to a new life, and I was getting on with it and having a nice time. And people had forgotten about me. It was fantastic. I could go to the pub without anyone taking a picture. Sorry, girls. As an athlete in the past, I lived with challenges, the pressure of competition, the travelling, which was constant, and the training alone, which was very hard. It doesn't happen these days. The kids who are travelling these days, be it good or bad, they have a group of people with them, a training partner, a coach, a family member, and it's not so isolated and scary as it was in my day. The media attention drove me mad because we didn't have too many athletes at my level when I was running. In fact, at the 72 Olympics, I was the only track and field athlete to win medals. There was enormous expectation because of that. And look, I'm a basic, average, tiny, bigger these days, woman who loved running fast. And that was as simple as it was to me. The expectation was enormous and scary, but I didn't get as nervous out there as I am today. It was just my job, and as much as I didn't earn a living out of it, it was just what I was born to do, was run fast. Maybe it was because my parents carried whips all the time, I'm not sure. And of course, the other thing I had to live with was the Eastern European situation with my East German counterparts beating me on most occasions, probably because of the testosterone levels that they were filled with. And unfortunately for them, a lot of them have ended up with breast cancer too. I didn't have that much testosterone pushed into my body in a pill form. I did have a bit of it pushed into my body, but not in a pill form. And these poor women were, oh, thank God somebody got it. You don't go away and live this life and not have fun, let me tell you. A lot of these women were put in awful situations, and a lot of them did get breast cancer, and a lot of them had deformed children, and some of them actually had sex changes because they were pushed too far into the men's world and they couldn't live as a woman again because their testosterone levels were never going to go back to a sensible stage or place. I lived with the fear and worry of failure, financial problems because I had no money. I was lucky I was looked after by people all over the world, but I shouldn't have had financial stress because there was no finance. And letting people down was also one of my big issues because you still have a coach, you still have training partners, you still have a family, you still have supporters from all over the place. They don't necessarily travel with you or didn't necessarily travel with me, but they were there to be let down if I didn't come good with the goodies, which was winning on the European circuit. Similar but different to breast cancer situation. The difference I see was, as an athlete, I was in charge of my destiny. I could control what happened. I'd train harder and I'd run faster. With BC, it was a totally new arena. I had no control. I was told what to do by the doctors and the nurses and the various people involved. And I didn't really understand the challenges outside of, I wanted to burp, not have a drink of water. I bleed when I'm cut too. I had no control over it. I had no understanding of it at all. I hated drugs, but they were pumped into me. It was totally against my principles in life after seeing what I saw, what was happening to the athletes in my era. To take drugs was a very big thing. Briefly, my story was I went to the GP with a small lump. She sent me off to have a mammogram. Then she sent me off to a surgeon, even though the lump was the right shape to be nothing and there was no real problem, accepting that in my world, if something could go wrong, it did go wrong. The surgeon asked me if I wanted to have surgery or not, and I said yes. He obviously got the results and sent me off for scans, and we had a second lot of surgery 5 days later. And I did have breast cancer, and I did have secondary breast cancer. There was a 25% spread into my lymph nodes. So I lived through 7 months of chemo, bit of in and out of hospital stuff happening there. It was Melbourne's winter, not a great time to be sick, and I had 36 radiation treatments. 5 weeks after my diagnosis, my mother died, after going through a long journey with lung cancer and esophageal cancer. We didn't tell her that I was sick because she just didn't need to take that to her grave. I lost my job and I had a partner breakdown, relationship breakdown, which made it all very difficult. I moved to the Sunshine Coast because I couldn't cope with Melbourne's weather any longer, and stayed with a friend. And that was in the 5-day gap between chemo and radiation. And I did my radiation in Brisbane. So I lived on the Sunshine Coast. We had to drive to Brisbane every day, and I had a lot of commitments coming up. So I did about 6 days of double up treatments where I would go down in the morning for the first treatment, and then I would go back later in that day for the second treatment. And all of that reduced the time I had to spend having radiation. From doing that, I have one breast that is never going to be anything but 44. It's so cooked, it's as hard as a rock. And another one that touches my knees whenever I take my bra off. It didn't all stop there for me, it just seemed to get worse. It was like I turned 44 and the heavens of nastiness opened up. I was 4 years later diagnosed with ovarian cancer, early stage, and 12 months later, or just over 12 months later, I was diagnosed with it again. The interesting thing about that and the carrot that I had to keep me going was that Sydney had the Olympic Games coming up. So 2000 Olympic Games saved me in many ways because the chronic depression I had was taking me to very low places. The good thing out of the Sydney Olympics also was that a lot of the big corporates in Australia needed ambassadors. And so I was signed up by many, many corporates, and I'm very appreciative to them. People like BHP Billiton, Telstra, NAB, City of Sydney, it goes on and on and on. And with the finances that I made at that time, I actually was very careful and I set myself up so that I have a pretty good life now. And where once upon a time I didn't think I'd be doing anything but working to the grave, now I'm in a position where I can have a pretty good life. It didn't stop there either. I've had 4 heart ablations, AF ablations, and the last one the surgeon said to me in Adelaide, I'm keeping you in for a couple of days longer. And I thought, oh, Jesus, here we go. And he said, I'm going to put a pacemaker in because your heart rate's too low. So that was fine. I've had a change of my what do they call it, generator now. And the generator sits there, and this one's friendly with all of the stuff at the airport, so it's much better. My appendix blew out, my gallbladder blew out. I was diagnosed with epilepsy And more recently I was diagnosed with an essential tremor. I don't know why it's bloody essential, because I don't want it, but it's there. So if you're looking at me shaking, don't think I've got Parkinson's. I haven't. I've just got this damn thing that shakes and spills drinks, which is an awful waste. Probably the most consistent annoyance is depression. And my mother had it, and I watched her all of my life, battling it and challenging it and ending up in psychiatric hospitals and not having a nice life. I don't think my mother enjoyed her life. And I was determined not to live like her, that I would take charge of my life and I wouldn't let it happen. But unfortunately, depression is the best hurdler in the world, and it overcomes all of those things, and it does bite you on the bum. And I think most of us have had it. I think in the first year of breast cancer, after breast cancer, about 50% of us are diagnosed or we live with breast cancer. I did what I could do. I went to many doctors. I started taking pills. I went to a psychiatrist, Rosie, in Melbourne for a while. So I'd fly down and have a week in Melbourne and see Rosie every day. And in the end she said, Raelene, you're wasting your money coming down because we're getting nowhere. You know, I'm not getting into your head and you're not letting me. So I stopped doing that. And eventually, after time, I decided to take charge and be positive with my own life and be proactive about this damn thing that I was being reactive to. So I started walking my dog, Princess Charlie of Buderim. She's a delight. She's having a big operation tomorrow, so I'm very nervous for her. But yeah, walking my dog. We walk about 5k a day. You might laugh, but that's 5k of exercise. I garden. I love my gardening still after studying horticulture. I have a tropical garden at Buderim, and I mow my lawns, which are on a bit of a slope, which is about most lawns in Buderim. I go to the gym. I go to the gym 3 days a week now. I've got a personal trainer. I did used to go and do it on my own, but I was getting nowhere because I was doing the exercises I liked and not the ones I needed. So I employed Mike, and I've been going 3 times a week to him for about 2 or 3 years now, and it's fantastic. Takes me back to the track. We joke, we laugh, we work hard, and I walk away feeling good about myself and about what I've just done. I mix with the people I want to mix with. Once upon a time in my life, I spent a lot of time mixing with people I did not know, and I didn't particularly want to know, and I didn't particularly like their actions or how they lived their lives. Very different to you people. I want to mix with you people because I like you. We've got something in common, and you all need help and I need help, and I get that help that I might give you in return, and that makes a big difference to my life. I say no to things I don't want to do now. Once upon a time I was obliged to do all sorts of things. You know, when you're an ambassador for corporate, you are told what to do, you are told what to say, you are told what to wear. I tell you, the day I stopped bloody doing that was fantastic, when I could chuck all those clothes out. Because as you can see, I like shorts and t-shirts, and corporate clothes were not for me. I've changed my routine. So I found living in one routine held me back. So not that I've changed it dramatically, but I've changed it so I can't let myself get out of doing things. By that I mean, I know that I need to exercise. But if I had my choice, I'd say, I'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't make it good. Tomorrow doesn't make it work for you. You've got to do it today. I'm happier for doing all of this, and the other thing I've learnt that was very important for me, and you did it as an athlete, but I didn't do it instinctively after my breast cancer, is I learnt to, as an athlete, to leave yesterday behind. So if you didn't do something right the day before, doesn't mean you're going to not do it right the next day. And if you lose a race to somebody one day, doesn't mean you're going to lose to them the next time. If you get that loss locked in your brain, you will lose. So I learnt as an athlete to actually leave yesterday behind. Do the best you can today. Leave yesterday behind, because you can't make it up if you haven't done the hard yards. Look forward, look to tomorrow, look to next month. Give yourself goals. It's all good. I've come a long way since '96 from the fear, the holding friends and family together. It always made me laugh, because I was saying to my 2 brothers, Don't worry about it, it'll be okay. I was patting them on the back. They should have been patting me on the bloody back. And they just didn't have the balls to do it. Sorry, there is one gentleman here. Organising work. As I said, I was lucky. I was put in a good position because of the Sydney Olympics, and worrying about my future and if there was one. So I've put all that aside. I'm 71. I'm on the move. Let's face it, we don't live forever. And I'm not as scared of dying young anymore because I'm not bloody young. So it's just a matter of moving on. As I said, I've put myself in a good financial position. I'm not wealthy. I'm comfortable. So that I could retire in a secure way. Life is good for me on the Sunshine Coast. I live in a little community called on top of Buderim, a little mesa, and they know Charlie and they say g'day to me. Hi Charlie, and how are you? It's fine. I like that. There's nothing special there. And they say it with a smirk on their faces mainly. I became involved with this network through a lady I'd never met, Lynn Swinburne, and she had this dream. As you can imagine, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I got the kookiest offers of things to do. You know, this person was very serious about I should join their group, and the group was about drinking your first urine in the morning and building that up until you could do it all day and drink your last urine at night. And I was like, Jesus, please, doesn't he know what my urine smells like? And I got literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of offers. I did save a lot of them and put them in a cupboard for a while, but I've eliminated all of those. And then I met Lynn Swin, who had been trying to make contact with me through friends in Melbourne and all sorts of ways, and I never answered her once. I'm very good at that, am I not, girls from the network? And I did have my first appearance after my breast cancer in Melbourne, and she came along, and after I'd done the work I had to do, and it was about a research program of some sort, and I'd had enough. I was burning up with a hot flush, and I was as nervous as all hell, and it had been 18 months or so since I'd been in the public eye or in front of the media. I told my minders I needed to get out of the place. And so they took me to the lift, and as the lift door was closing, a foot came through the door. And that was Lynn Swin. That's how I met her. And it was a day that really changed my life because she was practical, she was smart, she knew what she wanted to develop. She'd done it in Victoria to a certain degree, and she just could see that it was going to make a big difference nationally if she could get it working. She talked me into joining the board, so I was actually with her while she negotiated with people to join the board. One of the things we did in that period of time for my 50th birthday was we had 1,100 of my closest personal friends along for a birthday party at Crown Casino. It was a great night. We did a number of things. We raised money for the network. We introduced a lot of people to each other. We gained a profile for the Pink Lady. But the other thing was John Howard was sat between Lynn and myself. And poor bastard. And the goal for the night was to get a drug called Herceptin put on the PBS. Now, a lot of you might know Herceptin still today. It's still a very good drug. And there's all sorts of ways that they're managing it if the cancers are breaking through. I'm not technical. They've got blockers that make the Herceptin work, and it's still one of those great, great drugs in this breast cancer world. Well, Johnny stayed for a long time. He was supposed to go home at 9:30. I think he was still there at 11 o'clock, and Lynn and I were still getting him to dance with young girls and women with HER2-positive breast cancer, and he had the best time, drink in hand the whole time. And he got that thing passed within a short period of time, and it was great. It's probably one of the most wonderful things that I've had, or experiences I've had in my life. It made me very proud of the network, and John and I became long-term friends out of that, which was great. I hope that the network has added value to your life and will continue to do so in the future. It's under great leadership with KP, She's young, she's got energy, she knows about breast cancer, not because she's had it, but she's been around for a long time. She's made fantastic contacts in the corporate world and in the political world. She's really working hard on the Labor Party now, the poor buggers. But to make sure that you women and the women to come after you and me are given rights and are given the drugs they need and are given benefits to this experience that they've had. I know that sounds weird, but there are benefits because you do grow once you've had a serious illness like this. There have been lots of good times and there are going to be lots of good times in the future. I've survived and I hope you enjoy your survival as well. And I hope you've enjoyed your day here today because that's what we're about. You are, all of us. We are one. And that's why you must stay in contact with the network. Even though they have this bloody digital stuff, pick up the phone and ring and say, I'm a human being, listen to me. Thanks to KP and her staff, and thank you ladies for coming along. And Jen.
Oh my God, it's so good to have her back. Like, seriously. You bring so much joy, Raelene, to so many people. And like I said earlier, you have shared your story to so many people and you have a lasting legacy on all Australians and particularly on our network. So we just think you're a bloody legend. And you're real.